They are an effective alternative to guns, capable of stopping a full-grown man in his tracks and sending them writhing to the floor. In the US, more than 2 million people have been hit with tasers by police over the past decade and more than 9,200 in the UK since they were widely introduced in 2009. But a new study has raised concerns about the impact that the 50,000-volt shock these non-lethal weapons inflict on the human body. Researchers, who were funded by the US Department of Justice, found a burst of electricity from stun guns can impair a person's ability to remember and process information. Some of those who were hit by the electric weapons also showed short-term declines in cognitive function which were comparable to mild dementia. The scientists behind the study said it raises serious questions about the ability of suspects to understand their rights and answer questions after they have been hit by a taser. Dr. Robert Kane, director of the Criminology and Justice Studies Department at Drexel University in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, who led the study, said, being shocked had a traumatic effect on some participants. Some were emotionally debilitated by the experience. The findings of the study have considerable implications for how the police administer Miranda warnings. If suspects are cognitively impaired after being tossed, when should police begin asking them questions? There are plenty of people in prison who were tossed and then immediately questioned. Were they intellectually capable of giving knowing and valid waivers of their Miranda rights before being subjected to a police interrogation? We felt we had moral imperative to fully understand the taser's potential impact on decision-making faculties in order to protect individuals' due process rights. The research, which is published in the journal Criminology and Public Policy, is the first to conduct a randomized controlled trial on the cognitive effects of being shocked by a taser. The team recruited 142 healthy young participants who were divided into 4 groups. One group hit a punch bag to simulate the heightened physical state that may occur after a tense police encounter. Another received 5-second shocks from a taser, while a third hit the punch bag and received shocks, and a fourth acted as a control who did nothing. The research team assessed the cognitive ability of each participant before and after the experiments. Those shocked by the taser showed impairments in verbal learning and memory, which lasted, on average, less than an hour. While short-term, the researchers were shocked by the severity of the effect on brain function. The mean score on a test known as the Hopkins Verbal Learning Test, which measures a person's ability to learn a string of new words and recall that information, was 26 before the experiments. A quarter of those hit by the taser, however, scored below 20 in the same tests, which is the same level of cognitive functioning as a 79-year-old, indicating mild cognitive decline. Tasers are a great alternative to deadly force. When used in lieu of firearms, tasers can save lives, said Dr. Kane. But using a taser is not without risk. Although they are considered safe when used on healthy people, people have died from being tossed. They should be treated as a dangerous weapon. The results also showed that taser exposure caused participants to have difficulty in concentrating, increased anxiety levels and a feeling of being overwhelmed. The researchers said these subjective self-reported states suggest being shocked by a taser can also alter important emotional states that can affect someone's ability to think clearly. They added that in real-world situations, the cognitive impairment suffered by suspects who are tasered could be even greater than the healthy participants in the experiments. Dr. Kane said, "We would expect typical suspects, who may be high, drunk, or mentally ill and in crisis at the time of exposure to experience even greater impairment to cognitive functioning as the result of taser exposure." Tasers have now become a common piece of equipment for trained officers in the US and many European countries. In the UK they were initially issued to firearms officers, but are now carried by more specially trained units. The weapons are controversial as they have been implicated in the death of a number of police suspects. However, law enforcement agencies argue they provide a safer alternative to using live firearms and give police a way of subduing threatening or out-of-control suspects. Human rights campaigners have been pushing for stricter rules for police using tasers and insist they should be considered a dangerous and lethal weapon. While the researchers of the latest study do not advocate withdrawing tasers from use, they say police should take the impact they can have on the brain into account when using them. Dr. Kane said, when police take suspects into custody, they read them their Miranda rights, which state that suspects have the right to remain silent, and anything they say can and will be used against them in a court of law. The findings from this study suggest that people who have been shocked with a taser may be unable to understand and rationally act upon his or her legal rights, and may be more likely to waive their Miranda rights directly after taser exposure or to give inaccurate information to investigators. These decisions can have profound impact on an eventual judicial finding of guilt or innocence. What would it cost police to wait 60 minutes after a taser deployment before engaging suspects in custodial interrogations?